everyone, Simon Bard here, or you can call me Sully.
Well, it's near the end of 2025, and I've already got my 10 favorites and 10 least favorite movies I saw in theaters this year, even before the official summer season began, but I just want to go back to doing top 10 lists again, which I haven't done since my 2018 lists. And this time, it will be on movies I like and don't like from 2024. For that year, I saw 86 films in theaters, which includes films I saw in January 2025 when I didn't have time to watch them in December 2024, and films that initially came out in December 2023 but then got a wide release in January and February of 2024. And no, I'm not doing an overview of all the films I saw in theaters, since those videos took longer to make in writing, organizing, and editing.
So, with that out of the way, let's get started by going over a top 10 list of my top 10 least favorite movies of 2024.
Number 10. Mufasa the Lion King. While I didn't quite like the 2019 remake of the original 1994 animated film, this prequel/sequel is a slight improvement given there's more and better facial expressions on the characters than the 2019 version, has some insights that lead into the previous film, and loose connections to the Lion King animated spin-offs and sequel movies. However, the same can't be said for the rest of the film, as the original songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda are slightly okay, but mainly forgettable, the humor's not too funny, constant dialogue not allowing the film to take a breath, and the story felt like a retool of The Land Before Time. And overall, despite some improvements with it only being okay-ish throughout, the film hardly did anything else to impress or entertain me. Number 9. Baby Girl. This is a very unusual film for me, as while I was kind of intrigued about it after seeing the trailer with how mysterious the romantic implications were, it didn't live up to what I was expecting. Sure, it plays into the angle about women in power and of men trying to dismantle it, but it hardly makes an impact on the film. The motivations of the characters are all over the place, even if they set some boundaries, and the dramatic stuff wasn't engaging. The one thing I really wanted to know more of, and felt was interesting, was the main lead's daughter and her sexuality as a lesbian, and the relationship he has with her mother. But other than that, and the moments of sexuality that can once in a while veer into almost explicit territory, the whole erotic drama thriller felt nearly boring, quite complex, not entertaining, and even joyless. Number 8. Wicked. I never saw the original Broadway musical, but I am very familiar with the Oz storyline, mostly with the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie, which this film occasionally references. Yet this is more in line with the L. Frank Baum 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. But with that said, I found this adaptation to be all too predictable and obvious in the direction it's going, and equally frustrating for a story around themes of misunderstandings, discrimination, and oppressions, as half the time it's mean-spirited. Which I truly get the point of them all and the reasons for them, yet I couldn't get behind the harshness, and the predictable plot made it worse. Plus the songs are forgettable, questionable story points, and too many characters to focus on. It seems like it's all trying too hard to connect back to the original novel in some way, more than the 1939 film version, if that's really the case. There are good moments in this film too, with marvelous production designs, nice effects, fun choreography, and an occasional bit of humor and jokes. But in spite of those, this is one frustrating and very obvious musical fantasy, and I just hope that the upcoming sequel does better than this, but given the trailers I saw, I doubt it. Number 7. Never Let Go. This is the kind of survival horror thriller that has similar vibes to M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, given some of the premise and a twist that's predictable. However, it goes in a pretty different direction than The Village, and there's even confusion with what the characters experience, and whether or not the evil entity is real, especially when real people start arriving. And while The Village is boring and questionable in some regard, this one felt lame, empty, and tiring with little themes of parental overprotection and abuse. And apart from Halle Berry's performance, which is okay, her southern accent didn't get to me. All in all, it is an uninteresting flick full of confusion and clunkiness, even in its final moments. Number 6. The First Omen. While I'm not too big into the Omen films, they gave me more thrills and scares despite getting worse with each entry. Yet this prequel to the 1976 original film wasn't quite as thrilling or satisfying as any of the previous films. There's so much going on as the film reveals more of its story, more dramatic moments than horror moments, a twist I predicted but felt unsatisfied with as the film gave out more information than necessary, and at times it would forget a small bit that the original film mentioned, leading to an ending that, other than connecting to the original, wasn't what I thought it was going to be. There are moments that tend to reference or foreshadow events in the original, as well as a small jump scare, graphic and or creepy imagery, and a return of the theme music from the original film by Jerry Goldsmith, but that's about all I took away from it. So overall, this is sort of lame and kinda boring, and the only film that has a better conclusion is ironically the third film. Number 5. Cuckoo. As original as this horror film is, it felt confusing, awkward, frustrating, and weird as it kept going, and I was hardly invested or moved by it all. It has a couple of modern horror cliches from a dead parent to victim blaming, but there's some editing choices that despite adding tension and unease, makes little to no sense. Plus there's metaphors surrounding the cuckoo bird that do play into the narrative and to certain twists, but by the end, I didn't care much of what's happening. And overall, it's a weirdly bizarre horror flick with nothing characters, a crazy and messy story, and ish effects and edits that's nothing short of cuckoo. Pun intended. Number 4. Challengers. This felt surprisingly lame for an original sports drama, as the stakes and tensions involved seemed lackluster, and I was unmoved by most of it. Even so, the film is told in a nonlinear narrative, feeling rather inconsistent for the most part, even when it didn't need to. Yet there's only a small handful of okay moments, from interesting angles and shots, some slow motion, and quick cuts get a moment or two to shine. However, given its confusing narrative, boring scenarios, and a lackluster ending that offers nothing, the overall film is a lame mess where its highlights can't match whatever game this film is playing. No pun intended. Number 3. Long Legs. As much as this movie tries to follow in the vein of The Silence of the Lambs, it's really upsetting in the lengths it goes through in being vastly different from the grounded and more suspenseful 1991 film. There's some awkwardness in some of the acting. Nicolas Cage, as unhinged as he is, isn't wholly enjoyable or scary, and the ways the killings are done just seem otherworldly. Yet the camera work and edits are meh and too on the nose, and the violent and disturbing imagery and the makeup on Cage are okay. But the overall experience and scope felt uninteresting, troubling, and upsetting, and it's no way on par with Silence of the Lambs, since that had me invested throughout with interesting characters, an engaging mystery, and a thoughtful presentation. Number 2. Horizon: An American Saga. While this isn't a bad idea to present a film chronicling and depicting the lore of the old American West in a pre-Civil War era, with Western territories and settlements, cowboys and Native Americans, this film from Kevin Costner, however, is quite a bore fest except when there's action happening, and they occasionally work for what the characters are doing. Other highlights are the rousing music, the sets and costumes, and some okay camera work, almost IMAX quality. But a majority of it is pretty boring, with a 3-hour runtime, too many characters to follow or keep focus, some pointless scenes, 2 different stories seemingly not connecting, night scenes that are long and too dark to see, and a finale of drive-by shots supposedly made like a trailer for Chapter 2, but as far as I'm concerned, there's no news at all for what has been made about it. And overall, there's very little to keep me engaged in this Western drama, with characters, jumbled story, but okay production.
Now, before I get into my least favorite movie of 2024, I want to go over some runners-up from that year.
Night Swim. A typical horror movie based on a 2014 short film that's not too effective, and I was kind of disappointed. It could have been an okay haunted swimming pool movie, given how quickly the characters become aware of the situation, but other than an occasional creepy image, some okay shots and angles, it's very standard as horror films go, and I didn't care enough about the characters to get invested. Plus some weak exposition and lame dialogue. Monkey Man. An eh-ish action thriller that didn't grab me as a revenge film, and it felt almost boring. It has brutal action and okay edits, but I was hardly invested in it, as it's chaotic in the camera work, messy political issues, and often feels all over the place, and once in a while loses focus, even as a directorial debut of Dev Patel. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. An iffy prequel to Mad Max Fury Road that has a handful of alright moments from Chris Hemsworth to alright action and effects. Yet the film is too long with some boring characters and being an all-over-the-place complicated mess that could have been a simple revenge flick. Borderlands. A chaotic sci-fi action comedy based on the 2009 video game of characters, unfunny humor, plot details that make no sense or come out of nowhere, unexciting action, and outside of the sets, effects, and costumes that felt standard, it is just a bland, nonsensical flick that isn't engaging and results in a mess that feels like chaos. Saturday Night. An okay yet messy biographical comedy drama on the making of the first Saturday Night Live episode that has characters and a jumbled story of one too many things going on, unfunny humor, and being kind of chaotic and all over the place that really should slow down and offer more nuance, even if the casting and overall look is fine.
And now we come to this, and if you weren't surprised by the other ones, you might be surprised by this one.
And my number one least favorite movie of 2024 is Anatomy of a Fall. Yes, it came out in 2023, but I'm counting it here since I saw it in January 2024. And if I haven't seen this film or thought it was okay, then Horizon would be number one. Regardless, this is a boring French crime drama. I wasn't expecting much going in, but I felt nothing by the end of it all. It doesn't play around with blending the truth and lies, and there's no harsh judgment on the lead or scolding going on, only fair and legal accusations, which I'm okay with. Yet I wasn't getting into it and felt bored during portions of the film, even during the trial, in spite that nearly half of the dialogue is in English for a French production. Not a bad movie by any means, but I wasn't invested in it aside from what really happened in the case.
And so that is all for my least favorite movies of 2024. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you next time when I take a look over my favorite movies of 2024.